The gameplay's amazing. Everyone was like, I'm not gonna play that. It's a movie game. And like we've all just been beat down and subdued by all the terrible movie games that ever come out. Right? We just all played Spider-Man 1 on PlayStation X, where we're just like, this is awful. I hate this.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the CoinDrop Podcast. This is episode 126, and joining me this time is Zach. Zach, welcome back, buddy. It's been a few episodes. It's been 2 episodes. We were recording a little bit late. It's Friday instead of the usual Thursday. Gave you a little bit of a break last night. What have you been up to?
So that break was absolutely needed. So I had training at work this week, and on top of that, I had midterms, and my dryer broke. So this week has been absolutely nuts. But I think we passed the midterm. The training went great, and now it's the weekend, and nice. I don't have to worry about it.
Hell yeah. Enjoy that weekend. Enjoy that break. So, playing anything fun? You get a chance to play anything? I saw you were playing Bitcraft a little bit.
Yeah, so I think it was my first episode where I went on the spiel about Bitcraft. So I fell off of Bitcraft for a bit. The player count was getting down to the couple hundreds, and I was like, we're done. So they actually just came out with an early access 2. They did a game wipe, so anyone who's ever played any sort of extraction shooter knows, any EFT player immediately knows, game wipes happen. So that's actually also refreshed the player count. So they did a game wipe and a huge update. They peaked at well over 6,000 players, which was more than they had in EA1. So actually, Chris and I have been playing Bitcraft online together. So it's been nice. It's been nice getting back into a game that is community oriented.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's good stuff. For my part, I still have not had a chance to play anything. I really would like to play Diablo, but there's tons of other games I'd love to play as well. Crimson Desert is right around the corner. It comes out at time of recording, 4 days. So
4 days.
Yeah, it's not far away. And I have just been swamped with getting ready for school. I've got my retake on Tuesday for the A1 engines test and the A8 AC test. And then Wednesday, I have my brakes and suspension ASE tests. So I've got 4 ASEs that I need to do in 2 days. And then I have my final on the 21st. So I'm just a ball of nerves and stress over here. But, you know, spring break's coming. And I still won't have any time to play video games because I'll be using all that time to work on the house to get it ready to sell. So, you know, eventually I'll be able to play video games again. Eventually. So for now, talking about them will have to suffice. So speaking of that, we have a Patreon side where we're going to do a little bit of extra content. If you guys aren't aware, I say it every episode, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/CoinDrop Pod. Over there, we're going to talk about 2 topics. One of them, a legal dispute of a very beloved MMO by everyone here at CoinDrop that we are all very sad and very interested to find out what the truth is behind what's happened. If you want to hear more about that, you'll have to come over there, as well as some information on Xbox's next hardware. Yes, they are still making a next-gen system. We're going to talk about it over there. There was some news out of GDC that got shot over to me via email, and I've got some thoughts. We're also going to talk about a couple upcoming games, not a huge amount of them this week. There's a ton coming out that are, quote, end of first quarter, but, you know, we don't like to talk about those because they don't have hard dates, and they could always get pushed. So we always try to focus on things that are coming out immediately with a confirmed date. And there's really not a whole lot for the next 2 weeks, but I've got a couple for you. So if you want all that, head over to patreon.com/CoinDropPod. And for $3 a month, you help support us, and you can get all that extra content. If you want to support the show and you can't afford $3 a month, totally understand. Money's tight. I get it. Just tell a friend. Say, hey, check these guys out. Subscribe on YouTube. Check them out on Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, however you like your content. You know, word of mouth is a big factor in a podcast, and reviews are great, but personally, I just would rather know we have an audience that enjoys our content. So if you like the content, share it with a friend.
I definitely name dropped the podcast while I was playing Bitcraft Online before I started this podcast.
Hell yeah.
Hopefully those guys are tuning in too. They can tell Region 1 can all talk about it.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. You know, the further we reach, the more we can do. I've said it before, our annual giveaway, which we are still doing, we will still do that this summer, it's just going to be late, is funded by Patreon. I do it via Patreon, and I would love to see that get to a point where I can give away a console. That would be fucking awesome, in my opinion. But, you know, that's all out of the kindness of strangers' hearts. So we'll have to see. But speaking of great games and the kindness of strangers' hearts, this is a horrible segue, but we're rolling with it. Aether Iron is coming out soon, and you can play as Gia and see how much kindness she has in her heart. There we go. That's the hook. Aether Iron is a game that I personally have been a big fan of since last year at PAX. They showed it off in one of the press emails, and I got a chance to interview the developers, specifically the creative director. Great guy. If you want to see that footage, it is in our PAX showcase. I've got an interview with him on there, really easy to find. But they've released a couple of devlogs leading up to their launch at the end of the month because the game's finally coming out. Demo's been out for a while, if you're interested in it. The cool thing about this game, and Zach, I don't know if this hooks you as much as it does for me because I'm kind of a film noir like fanboy. It is 1930s future punk, future like sci-fi steampunk style gaming. And it is a narrative tactics-based RPG where you play as a gumshoe, a detective named Gia. And they've shared some more information, kind of how they got their setting, how they got to this point. So when the team Seismic Squirrel was starting out with this idea wanting to build a game, they kind of ran the gauntlet of like, what do we want to do? And they ended up settling on this idea of one simple question. What would humanity look like if they built up instead of out? If they were able to conquer the skies before we conquered travel? And so we got Aether Iron, which is based in the 1930s. It's an altered reality or altered history game based in the 1930s where humanity beat gravity before we even created trains. So we got this really cool sci-fi take on New York City that is super unique because most of the time, right, you see either like Victorian style steampunk or you see like cyberpunk, right? Aether Iron it's 1930s, man. We're talking like mafia running alcohol, right? Like during the Prohibition, that kind of time period, but with flying cars in cities and stuff like that. And inspiration from, you know, detective movies and detective themes. And I don't know, you watched the devlogs. What was your opinion? Because you didn't get a chance to play it at PAX, obviously, you weren't there. But I'm curious what your thoughts are on kind of what they showed off and what they talked about.
So my initial thoughts were, we covered a game close to this a while ago, and for whatever reason, the name escapes me right now, but I think what was it, like Dustpunk?
Oh, Duskpunk, yeah, Duskpunk. Very
Duskpunk.
Similar-ish to a certain extent. Yeah, that was more
Similar-ish.
like, yeah, kind of similar.
Yeah, yeah. I immediately know that the gameplay itself is different,
Yeah.
but the layout and the transition between screens is what immediately caught me.
Sure,
Like, this looks exactly like Dustpunk. I saw there were like some dice mechanics, but no, you're right. It's absolutely it reminds me of playing Mafia 2 on my PlayStation 2 with my little brother, just in more of a story-driven gameplay basis. And I'm actually surprised this one actually slipped past me for what it did. If it's been out in demos since last year, I would have seen it, but it does look quite enjoyable. It has a central protagonist, so it's not just a, hey, here's a mindless story, random goon number one, go enjoy. There's a storyline, and there's something to invest time in to learn about a alternate history. It's like BioWare, was it? Is it BioWare Infinite? You would think I would know these things.
BioShock Infinite.
BioShock.
Yeah.
BioWare's the company.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, guys. The midterm has crushed my soul, and even though it was 2 days ago.
You're still
BioShock Infinite. Yeah. Still recovering, still reeling a little bit. Yeah, BioShock Infinite. It does give like that vibes. Hey, here's this alternate history, and it's more of like an uncanny valley, but in a good way.
Yeah.
Here's this alternate history. Obviously, it doesn't exist, but what if it did? And I like that aspect a lot.
So, talking about the what if it did thing, they drew on this concept I'd never heard of before, which is kind of cool. I'm going to try and say this word, but it's a word that's way too complex for my tiny peanut brain. Lumiferous Aether. Lumiferous Aether is an explanation for gravity that actually dates back to ancient Greece, and I guess was actually disproven sometime in the 20th century in the early 1900s. But this whole world is based around the idea of like, well, what if it wasn't? What if that was true? And that's how they end up like harnessing gravity and going against gravity and building cities into the sky and stuff like that. And a lot of their story is built around the idea of real historic events throughout time that they have twisted and kind of put their own spin on to bring it into this game. Like, I don't know for sure, but it almost looked like at one point there's a version of the quote unquote Boston Tea Party, which obviously like in this timeline would have happened, you know, hundreds of years beforehand, but it looks like they drew some inspiration from events like that. They also said that a lot of their characters come from people in history that they have kind of adapted and changed and made some different changes. So we could see some mafia aspect to this, right? Like there is already confirmed the barons, quote unquote, who quote unquote rule the city kind of thing. So you've got a little bit of that mafia vibe to it. And Gia plays this gumshoe from the slums who's like trying to get up, you know, get her big break, and ends up crossing one of these barons. And, you know, you kind of experience that story through her perspective. And the art style alone does it for me. It's what captured me immediately when I saw this come across my desk for PAX last year, was the art style is so unique and so beautifully drawn that I was like, I gotta find out more about this game. Interestingly enough, they were having trouble building the combat for this game. They didn't know what they wanted to do with the combat. So it was actually kind of funny story that they kind of go into in the devlog. In 2023, literally the last day of GDC, Seismic Squirrel, the team, got into a party they kind of not were invited to. Speaking
Best
as
kind.
Yeah, speaking as somebody who did that for the Riot Party at PAX years ago. Well done. And they met a team called Chaos Theory. Now, I don't know too much about Chaos Theory, but I've heard the name before. I think they're like freelance developers, right? And they created this partnership and started building the combat, which they derived from games like Final Fantasy Tactics and Fire Emblem, is kind of the basis of their combat system. And they wanted to make it really fit the world and match the pacing of the game, because the pace is it's thoughtful and intentional, right? Like the game is made in a way for you to really think through your decisions. Your decisions have weight, they have impact, what you choose to do. I saw that just in the demo I played at PAX. I literally just decided to steal this bottle of whiskey because the demo that I played was up in the sky. I was in this nice bar to pick up this scientist. I was like, fuck it, there's some good booze here. Nobody gives a shit. I'm going to take this bottle. I had no idea what I was going to do with it, but I wanted to take it. Literally not 10 minutes later, I was in a situation where these guys were harassing the doctor. I was like, yo, leave her alone. I'll give you this kick-ass bottle of scotch. And they're like, bet. Had I not taken that bottle, I don't know how that would have played out, but that was fucking cool that like immediately after I did this, I got an understanding of like, oh, okay, what you do really does impact this world. Not maybe to the level of Baldur's Gate 3, but still impressively level of, okay, well, what are we going to do if the player does this? You know, really well thought out. And we don't see that enough in games. So I'm really excited for the potential of Aether Iron from a narrative perspective, even separate from their incredibly cool combat. But what do you think of their combat, Zach?
So I do play a lot of turn-based strategy games. Right now, like everybody else and their mothers, I'm on this Slay the Spire kick. Big surprise. Oddly enough, a game that just blew Marathon completely out. That's a different story.
Yeah.
But I do love turn-based combat games. My wife heckles me. I like, oh, you're a nerd. Anime game. I love Fire Emblem. Been my like Hallmark series I followed since 6th grade.
Yeah, you were the one that introduced me to Fire Emblem.
Yeah, I love Fire. So every time you go onto Steam, it's kind of like every developer is making some kind of game where we took a handful of gameplay ideas that people like. Oh, we took our roguelites, we put our MMO, we put our card player, we put our rogue, everything in our handful, and we threw it at the wall, and whatever stuck is what kind of game we made.
Yeah.
So you end up with your crazy, and I'm not trying to crap on games right now, right? You end up with like things like Clover Pit. Like, what if we took a slots game and made it a roguelike, like Balatro? And everyone's like, yeah. And then you're like, you end up with your weird extraction shooters, like Escape from Duck Off, where we took a single player roguelike and made an extraction shooter. But it is a breath of fresh air to see a concept of a game where we're like, we don't have 900 different aspect to it, where it just spits out the game. We're like, why does this game have that kind of aspect to it? Where this is very clearly a turn-based game, but it's a turn-based in the sense that it is not a, hey, we just copied everybody else, or hey, we just made a roguelike that's turn-based. I hope you guys enjoy it. And you're like, oh, let me just add this to my other pile of 500 roguelikes I have to play at one given time.
Yeah.
It's unique. It is a very unique gameplay. The vehicle combat looks, like I just said, like, it's unique. Let me relate it to something else. It's like, hey, right? But like, that's how people work. Like, hey, we need some kind of relation if we're going to enjoy something.
Sure.
You know, if you like meat, you probably like hamburgers. But if you didn't like meat and you went to a place that sold hamburgers, you'd be like, why did I come here? And it's the same thing. Like, you need to be able to relate something to what people like. And it's like, oh, this is kind of like a little Mad Maxy. You know, like, there's some Mad Max vibes to this 1930s game. So like, yeah, like there's mafia vibes. There's like, I kind of like that it's a vehicle-based combat game, kind of like Mad Max, which, if you haven't played Mad Max, it's literally hidden gem. Everybody's like, it's just a movie game. Mad Max is amazing.
Yeah, it's not based on the movies at all, as far as I know.
The gameplay's amazing. Everyone's like, I'm not gonna play that. It's a movie game, and like we've all just been beat down and subdued by all the terrible movie games that ever come out. Right? We just all played Spider-Man 1 on PlayStation X, where we're just like, this is awful. I hate this. But no, Mad Max is amazing. But no, that's the vibe that I got, where I was like, this is very much Mad Max. Like, it is a turn-based combat game that involves vehicles, but it's not. It's distinctly its own combat style. And it's not like, oh, let me just move things around, or let me just play these cards that do these effects that copy this other game. It is its own distinct combat style. So that's intriguing in its own right.
Yeah, the combat is definitely standout. They use a lot of terminology, just from your skills to the abilities that you can do to like the car combat itself. They really enjoy 1930s vehicles and 1930s vibes. So like a lot of your skills are going to use stuff like gusto or grit and things like that, like those terminology. And they even work that into their combat by having like a move specifically, this is just an example, called the bootlegger turn, which allows you to do like a 180 in combat to like ram a car or get a better shot on them, because bootleggers used to pull drifting 180s, throw the car in reverse, and shoot at cops while they were going down the roads running alcohol. So there's some really cool stuff in here. You wouldn't have an RPG without tons of vehicle customization in this case, from how it looks to its abilities to the weapons you can do, the loadout for armor, you know, storage. You can min-max however you want. Very cool. Fun fact, they actually built this. So for those of you who aren't watching, who are listening, the car combat plays on a flying road that never repeats. So it's constantly moving, but it never repeats, because Chaos Theory actually managed to build in a way to like dynamically and continuously generate a never-ending road. So it's not a loop. It's not like 30 seconds and then you're going to see the same buildings. They actually built a system that allows it to be seemingly never-ending. So you could just sit there and watch the skyline go by forever, just waiting to take your turn, which is really cool. And they also wanted to add in, like, how do you do environmental issues if you're in a car, right? You could just go around them. So they added things like environmental weather, lightning storms, rain, hail, like stuff like that that can fuck you up, as well as other cars on the road. You'll be driving and a couple turns down, hey, now there's a civilian car in the way. Like, now you've got to navigate around civilians while you're trying to fight off whoever you're fighting. They managed to work in these really cool mechanics that, like Zach said, are not necessarily unique, but in how they've implemented them with their combat, they've become unique, right? Like, every tactics game, every tactics RPG has environmental things you've got to navigate around, whether it's obstacles in, you know, the battle path or rivers that might break up your combat lines. However, that's really hard to implement in a game where you're driving, especially when that driving is technically flying. So they found a really good balance, I think, and I'm pretty excited to see where it goes. There's multiple different cars, so there's going to be a ton of different vehicles you can use. And it's a game that focuses on narrative and world building first. That was their goal, was to make something narrative. And that's my buzzword, right? Like, everybody has their specific buzzword. Zach, it's probably deck builder, roguelike. For me, it's narrative. For me, I want that story. I want the journey. And I mean, the character design for Gia is also just awesome. She's hot as hell. Like that, like, take no shit hot as hell. Like, not like overly sexualized hot as hell like most female lead characters. She just looks like she knows what's up, and I'm into it. Not to mention just the whole cast looks like they pulled a lot of great characters. So I'm excited for the game. Comes out real soon, end of the month. And it's another game that I will buy and probably have no time to play for a while. But I'm gonna buy it.
Into the queue.
Into the queue, that's right.
I feel like I have to expound just a little bit.
Sure.
You mentioned, deck builder. I do love a deck builder. I'm historically terrible at that.
That's why I don't play it.
Yeah, right. Like, oh boy, I love deck builders. Slay the Spire has been kicking my ass.
Yeah, I believe it.
I'm good. I'm a smart dude, but I like play Slay the Spire, and I'm just a dense brick wall. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And like my friend at work is like, oh, I'm on Ascension 14. I'm like, I can't even beat the third character, but I'm having a great time.
That's what matters, having a great time. Well, speaking of having a great time, Zach, I know you're not necessarily a fan of horror games. You know, speaking about how you freaked the fuck out when the tank came through the wall when we were playing Left 4 Dead years ago. And at 2 a.m. Good times, great story.
We played Macabre like twice, and I was shitting myself. I was like, I'm screaming like my wife is trying to sleep in the other room. Shut up! And I'm screaming like a little girl at my desk. You guys are like, we've already teleported out. And I was like,
Oh yes, man, speaking of that game, we got to get back to that. The crawler nest map came out.
Yeah. So again, just like my deck builders, I love horror games. I'm also terrified of them. So Requiem is sitting in my queue because our good friend mentioned to me, he's like, this is like top of the gameplay, right? And like, obviously, Derry and I have played Resident Evil since, but like my favorite Resident Evil was Resident Evil 5, where I was an unstoppable force.
Fucking punching boulders.
So, yeah, right? I'm Chris Boulder punching Redfield. So when we get to Requiem, they're like, oh yeah, Grace is where it's like a super horror game. I'm like, can I skip that? Can I get to the part where
where you're just Leon fucking shit up?
Where I'm the horror.
They're trapped in here with me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anyways, sorry. Speaking of horror games.
Yeah. Speaking of horror games, there's a series of horror games I was unaware of called Remothered. And I did some digging on this because this came across my desk. There's a new one coming out soon, which apparently is a project a lot of people thought was abandoned. Remothered is, from what I can gather, this will be its third games. The first one was Tormented Fathers and then Remothered Broken Porcelain. Tormented Fathers apparently had really good reviews. A lot of people liked it. And Broken Porcelain, not so much. It seems like at this point it's better, but during its initial release, it was not very well received, whether that was bugs or other things. Well, that was years ago. I believe Broken Porcelain, don't quote me on this, came out in early 2020s, like 2021, 2022, somewhere in there. And everyone thought that the franchise was over. It turns out it's not. Remothered Red Nun's Legacy is coming out sometime later this year. We don't have an exact date, but this is a return from Stormmind Games, who made this. Funny enough, they also made a couple of other games. They also made a game I've been wanting to play for a while, A Quiet Place: The Road Ahead, and had a hand in arguably one of the best received Mafia games, The Old Country. So it seems like they've honed their skills with those two games and are back to kind of capstone the Remothered franchise. And let me tell you, this trailer's pretty fucking terrifying. It's really short, but they dialed up the horror. I'm seeing a lot of inspiration from Silent Hill. There's specifically a scene where it looks like one of the nuns comes around the corner and she looks terrifyingly similar to the nurses from Silent Hill. And I love it. I'm here for it. It looks amazing. And I was completely in the dark about this franchise. So, Zach, do you know anything about the Remothered franchise?
A little bit. If I remember correctly, these are Italian developers, I want to say.
I feel like that's correct, but I didn't look into them too much. One
of my things is like, oh, you add it to the list of the pool of subjects that we throw at walls for people like me. I do also enjoy a very good story driven game, a narrative game. But I also like narrative games where it makes you actually think, right? Not to sidebar too much. I just played Outer Wilds for the first time.
Oh, okay.
And boy, let me tell you, I was not ready. I was like, I was saving it for a good time. Let me play Outer Wilds. I've only ever heard good things about it.
Yeah.
Just absolutely gobsmacked by that game. So Remothered is, I don't want to compare it to Outer Wilds. That doesn't do Outer Wilds justice. Outer Wilds is very much an exploration story game, but kind of the same feel. And if I remember correctly, it gives you the same, like, hey, we are trying to make a horror game to align the main characters to make you connect with the main character, make you think like the main character, make you in tune with main character, right? Whenever we play Halo, we want to feel like an unstoppable killing machine. Here's Master Chief. You're an unstoppable killing machine. You're like, oh, I can connect with this guy. And I think, if I remember correctly, it's been a while. I think Remothered, the Tormented Father, I think that came out. And I want to be like, that only came out a couple years ago. But I was like, I think it was like 2018.
Yeah.
Pretty sure it was 2018. It's like 2018 was 8 years ago. I'm like, don't like that thought.
Yeah. 2018 was Remothered, Tormented Father, and then Porcelain was 2020 was Remothered, Broken Porcelain.
That's it. And I think it doesn't do it justice because this came out near the tail end of the time where like Amnesia was a big thing.
Yeah.
And like the Backrooms, where horror games were very much horror games. Hey, we're here to jump scare you, and the implementation of horror itself is the horror. And what I like about Remothered, and again, it's been 8 years all of a sudden. 2018 was only 2 years ago in my mind. Remothered is very much the psychological horror of what's going on is the horror. Not so much, we're not playing PT on PlayStation again. This isn't where like, oh, I'm going to turn around and something's going to immediately just kill me. And that's the horror. It's more of that story-driven psychological connection of you and the main character. And what's happening is the horror. So for that, to see this, and like, again, this is like, oh man, I must have been insanely swamped to miss this on my radar. It's like, again, I like horror games, but when I play them, I have to like take it baby steps at a time. I'm like, this looks really exciting to see, because a story-driven, narrative, connective horror game is just as good of a game that is story-driven like Outer Wilds to me.
Yeah, I agree. And I had no idea about this franchise. I'm actually kind of annoyed that I'd never heard of it. But the good news here is there is returning characters in this third game, as well as a new cast. So as they say with most games, you don't necessarily need to play the first two to play this one and enjoy it. But we've got a little bit of information here about the game. 13 months after 6 young girls vanished in Sicily, a new clue reopens the nightmare. When a mysterious recording rekindles the hope that her daughter might still be alive, Susan, against all reason, decides to go to the place where everything seems to have begun, a decayed noble residence isolated on the slopes of Mount Etna and once owned by the Ashman family. So it feels like they're taking elements of, and again, we do this, right? Feels like they're taking elements of like Resident Evil with Silent Hill. You've got the mansion, the creepy, what went on here kind of thing, but you've also got the like disturbing psychological horror that you see in Silent Hill. It looks really cool, and I don't know anything about this franchise, so I'm really itching to be like, maybe I should go buy the first 2 games and play them to check them out to get ready for this. But it's an homage to old school horror games, third person over the shoulder cam, and it's going to have some puzzles. It's richly detailed environments. This is really their kind of love letter to this franchise and to their fan base to kind of, it sounds like, end this franchise. They don't specifically say this is the end, but they mention it in their vid log or their dev log that this might be the end of the franchise, which makes me interested to see where they move on from here.
Yeah, I do think this is the end of at least this trilogy.
Right.
Again, not to like sidebar, but you mentioned like, hey, Resident Evil, Silent Hill, right? Those are, when you say, hey, AAA horror game, those are the AAA horror games.
Yeah.
Not Resident Evil 5 or 6, but all the other Resident Evils and Silent Hill.
Yeah.
Right? If anyone's who ever played Resident Evil 6, you come to me and tell me in my face that Resident Evil 6 is a horror game, and I will fight you.
He's gonna throw hands.
And look, don't get me wrong. I love Resident Evil 5 and 6. Resident Evil 5 is my favorite Resident Evil because like I do like horror games. I like the Resident Evil story. I like the entire world. Really, like everything about Resident Evil to me is great.
Yep.
I just can only take so much horror at one time. I don't like puts me on edge.
Yeah.
So, you know, when I get to play as Chris, the boulder punching Redfield, and I get to be the horror, I'm like, this is it.
Yeah.
And the only reason I bring them up is those games, when we say like, oh, horror games, and, you know, I mentioned earlier, I was like, there's a reason, you know, we're on Resident Evil Requiem.
Requiem.
You
got it.
Grasp on
yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, right. So like we've gone through Resident Evil Village, we've gone through Resident Evil 7, we've got this is what Resident Evil
9.
Yeah. Anyways,
Yeah.
Resident Evil still going on. Silent Hill going strong, right? These are the AAA games where everyone's like, are they even really horror? They're still going.
Yeah.
So to see Remothered 3, I was like, yeah, you know what? You don't see it anymore. You don't see Amnesia anymore. The only reason Amnesia was popular was for a streamer we can't talk about. You know, when you see the back rooms or SCP, like those are, yeah, sure, those are horror games, but the jump scare loses its value after the second time.
Yeah, I prefer the tension so much more than the just Five Nights at Freddy nonsense. It's just, it doesn't do it for me.
Yeah, you give me a story and give me a reason of why this is a horror game, worth a million times more.
There's some good ones out there. It's just, you know, there's a reason Silent Hill and Resident Evil have lasted the test of time. There just is. And don't get me wrong, like Five Nights at Freddy's has its place. It's loved by streamers and viewers all over the world, but it's just not on the same level as Resident Evil. The lore for Five Nights at Freddy's is fucking insane, but it's not there. And Remothered looks like it's really kind of between those two, right? It's still an indie game, but it's way more in line with the tension and horror that you get from Resident Evil or Silent Hill than the cheap jump scares of Five Nights at Freddy or literally all the other horror games that are just, they're streamer games, right? Like those aren't games that I personally would play, but some people do. I don't know.
Yeah, some people.
Enjoy what you enjoy.
Yeah. I think I'll leave the last thought at this, right? When we talk about like, oh yeah, it's not a jump scare. It's not a jump scare game. It's a narrative game. And if anyone's ever played Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice, anyone at all, and sorry, you can pause here, you can skip 45 seconds or whatever, but spoiler alert, right? Once you play Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, you realize technically it's not a horror game, but it is from the perspective of the player, and that's what matters. That's the horror, right? So when the horror is
the perspective
the game
of
itself,
the character, not the player.
The character, sorry, the character that the character the player's playing.
Yes.
Right. So like Amnesia, right? The horror is the area you're in. The character itself is whatever. But you know, Resident Evil, the horrors are happening around them and to them, and part of them. You know, same with Silent Hill. Like is integrated into the character. Same with Remothered, and that's why I wanted to bring up Hellblade.
Yeah.
Right. The game itself, if you were to, you know, sorry, spoiler alert again, 45 seconds. Right. Senua is schizophrenic. Everything happening to her is just a figment of her imagination. So if you just remove that, it's just a regular game. But because you're schizophrenic, that's what makes the horror. Yeah. And same with and I'm not trying to compare it to like same with Remothered. You're schizophrenic. No. Yeah. The horror is integrated part of your character. There's a reason that your character is invested in this horror. It's not just like stay in the light and the horrors won't happen. It's hey, like this is this is a cornerstone of the story. Like your character is just as important to the horror as the horror is to your character.
Yeah. And that makes it more impactful in my opinion, because your character relates, the player and the character are experiencing the horror together. And that is basically why Grace's story exists in Resident Evil 9. Because the developers were smart enough to go, hey, Leon's a veteran of this shit. We can't really do a horror game with Leon or Chris or Jill or any of them at this point. We need a new character if we're going to sell horror. Like, we need a character that's genuinely going to be afraid. Because at this point, these guys are like, fuck it, just another Tuesday, right? Like, you're an action game with horror elements. So Grace adds that horror back to the game, which is necessary. So it's really cool when you have horror that's terrifying to the player, that's also causing fear to the character. There's that connection there that makes it deeper. And I think that's really cool.
To wrap it up, I wrote, the only reason I know about this is I have a deep love for Italian things, oddly enough, right? Italian motorcycle. A band I listened to for a long time was Italian. I mean, like, they're still Italian. I just don't listen to them anymore.
They just stopped being Italian.
It's telling you to stop being Italian, right? So yeah, whenever I see Italian or basically small indie developers from that region, it is very neat. One of my favorite developers, they make the Moonlighter series.
Right,
I'm pretty sure they're from Spain,
Mhm.
right? So another small developer community from Spain. They make Moonlighter, and they make another game, Cataclysm. Talked about gosh, why? I'm sorry. Again, midterms have fried my brains, but I think I sent you the video of the synth metal,
Yes.
turn-based
Turn-based
RPG, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they're European. So yeah, like Remothered, it might be a niche horror game, but boy, do I love other countries giving a shot. I mean, like, look at Claire Obscure. You give French people the ability to make a game. We won 30 million Game of the Year awards, and it's like
They won
cool.
them all. Swept it.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Sometimes it does. Sometimes it doesn't take a AAA studio. Sometimes the best horror game you could play could literally just be from the small Italian studio.
You
so
never
maybe
know.
give them a shot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I will. Like I said, I'm already interested in the previous two based on where this one's at. So we will see. But speaking of small studios and giving them a shot, let's jump over to our quickfire and talk about a game that I personally am super fucking excited for that will be added to my list of games to not play anytime soon. Esoteric Ebb is a CRPG built in the D&D universe. It's a D&D CRPG, but you play as a really shitty cleric. Like, you're just bad at your job, and it's hilarious. It looks great. There's a demo right now. It's called Esoteric Ebb, and it is from a small development team out of Stockholm. It comes out, I think, the end of this month, maybe later. Oh, no, excuse me. Out now.
It came out.
Yeah,
It came out.
now.
It came out on the 3rd. Yeah.
Yep. So it was kind of inspired by Disco Elysium a little bit, as well as other CRPGs, but they lean on D&D style. You are playing as a D&D world cleric, and the player has to basically solve the mystery of the tea house, and how you go about that is kind of up to you, as it is in D&D. And you can either really suck at it or you can get good at it, and you have voices in your head, which kind of are your other attributes. Your dexterity becomes a voice, your strength is a voice, and they kind of narrate in your head. It looks really fun and really chaotic in a really cool way. You get to roll the dice and warp reality at your whim, apparently. So it's had a demo out for a while. I've wanted to get my hands on it. It's not one I've gotten a chance to, but if you're a PC gamer and a fan of tabletop RPGs or D&D, check out Esoteric Ebb. I highly recommend it. It looks really fun.
The publisher for Esoteric Ebb was Raw Fury, and Raw Fury publishes straight bangers. The Seance of Blake Manor, overwhelmingly positive on Steam, right? Esoteric Ebb, also overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah, almost 2,000 reviews, overwhelmingly positive for Esoteric Ebb.
So again, I'm like, man, maybe midterms and college is melting my brain, because how did I miss Esoteric Ebb? I follow Raw Fury. I love Raw Fury. Everything they come out with is amazing, just by pedigree alone.
Yeah.
And if you're going to listen to anything, just say, hey, these guys have 2,000 overwhelmingly positive reviews. The game looks hilarious.
Yes.
I love it. Immediately, I would give it absolutely shot. And when I say add it to the queue, I mean that in a good way.
Yep.
Add it to the queue, please, because I'll get to it.
Yes, it's another one that's very high on that list of games I would love to play. Well, talking about games we'd love to play, Darkhaven is not having the best of time. They launched their Kickstarter, and they're really close to meeting their goal, but they're 7 days away from it failing. In fact, by the time this comes out, we may know whether or not they succeeded or whether or not they will succeed. Next Friday, their Kickstarter ends, and they're still about $150,000 away from their goal, which is a real shame, because the developers behind this game, it's Phil Shank and a bunch of the other ex-Diablo devs, that got together, made Moonbeast, and are trying to push the ARPG genre forward in a really cool way. So if you want to back this project, I'd recommend it. I personally don't have the money to throw at it. I'm sure most of us don't, but I'm hopeful they'll make this project regardless of whether this Kickstarter succeeds or fail. I don't really know what to say other than that. It's a real shame they haven't gotten the backing as immediately as some other projects. For example, the one we'll be talking about over on the Patreon side that funded very quickly and is not really around anymore. So, maybe the current atmosphere of the crowdfunding has shifted as a result of games like the one we'll be talking about later. But Darkhaven has promise, and it's a real shame that it just isn't getting the traction that it should.
I'll add a little bit. I can't talk about it. I played it in pre-access, pre-alpha. I'm under NDA. I can't say much more.
Yeah.
Other than I enjoyed my time testing this product as a tester in a closed environment for an unreleased game in an unreleasable state to the public. And that says something when we have games hitting early access that are unplayed. I didn't know about the Kickstarter, and so maybe I'll go take a look at that. But for what I played, I enjoyed my time, and so I hope other players who hear about this project look at it, they enjoy their time, or think they would enjoy their time with it too.
Yeah, Eric Schaefer, Peter Hugh, and Philip Shank are, Shank is Shank the Overseer from Diablo 2. So, we've all killed Shank a billion times. But, I don't know. I hope this works. I hope maybe they come to PAX. Maybe we get to meet them with David Brevik and they get together and have a good powwow. Who knows? But I wish them the best of luck. I hope they get a sudden push in the final hour to get them over the top to get that $500,000 to make this game, which realistically $500,000 to make a game is pretty fucking reasonable by today's standards. So I hope they get it.
Yeah, we have people throwing Kickstarters up for very silly things that have nothing to do with development or help. And not that we're going to get into any of the craziness that happens in this world, but those Kickstarters get blown out of the water in days.
Yeah.
So
it's a shame.
Why not invest? Yeah, right. Why not invest your money in something that you'll get enjoyment out of, other than funding other people's ill decisions?
Yeah. Or, funding somebody for the memes or whatever the people are doing these days. I don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Zach, have you heard of a game called Teardown?
Teardown. Made terms is melting my brain. I swear I saw this on Steam the other day.
Yeah.
If not.
So Teardown is a voxel-based global destruction game that everything is built out of cubes. It looks like Minecraft, but on a different scale. The cubes are smaller.
Okay. You refreshed my mind.
Yep.
I know now.
Yeah. Really fun game. You literally can take a sledgehammer. It's physics-based. You can just bash out walls. They crumble realistically. Graphically, it's very unique in its own way. It has multiplayer now. And it looks like absolute chaos and beauty at the same time. Their trailer for it is insane. And I really want to get you and Chris in a game together. Again, add it to the fucking queue. And play Teardown, because it looks like GTA if everything was destructible. Everything. Cars, boats, trains, bridges, buildings, helicopters, literally everything is destructible. Multiple different game modes, from PvP to story co-op missions to just free roam destruction. It looks like a blast. And it's a game I've wanted to play for a long time, and now that it's got multiplayer, I'm gonna play it even more. It just looks fun.
It does. I do remember seeing this. I'm pretty sure it came out a couple of years ago.
It's been out for a while. 2022 is when it came out.
Yeah. That was only a year ago.
4 of them, in fact.
Yeah. Don't like that. Yeah. I do recall seeing Teardown now. It's funny that you mentioned it, and I think I questioned myself why I was seeing Teardown in my Steam queue or not, my Steam homepage. I was like, this game came out years ago, and now you mentioned, hey, it has multiplayer now. That's pretty wicked, because I remember when it first came out, I was like, that looks like an awesome idea, but what am I gonna do in it? And I'm not trying to I do enjoy a good sandbox game, but I'm also an objective or narrative based kind of player. I need a reason to play the game.
Yeah, there is actually a story to Teardown.
I know there's a story, and now the multiplayer is an additional cherry on top. The reason I haven't really been into it is when it first came out, I didn't think there was any story or so it's oh yeah, sandbox game. I was like, I can't. Like, it looks great, but like, there's no reason for me to play it. But now that you mentioned, hey, it's multiplayer, there's like 40 something different missions. You know, like,
and community made content. I mean, there's tons of stuff. Like, it's almost little Big Planet levels of content. Like, there's a straight up racing sim that they made, which is like demo dermy racing, where you could just bash into other people, take them out of the race. I mean, it looks cool. Attack and defend with like construction equipment where some dude just bulldozes through a wall using bullets flying and explosions. It just looks fun.
For all you people who are our age, Blast Corps on the N64 was one of my favorite games.
Yeah.
So
classic. If you guys are interested, by the time this comes out, the sale will be over, but it's $14.99 right now for the base edition. Deluxe edition is $19.99 and the Ultimate's only $24. Everything's half off right now. It's pretty cheap, and 71,000 people say that it's overwhelmingly positive. So,
a lot of people.
That's a lot of people. Next up, Zach, have you ever waited for a game for so long that you just got tired of waiting and said, fuck it, hold my beer, I'll do it myself?
Do you want to talk about Peter Molyneux for an hour or no? Because we can talk about Peter Molyneux for an hour.
Well, let's talk about Highguard and how, you know, we didn't get a Titanfall 3 because of that. Well, someone said, hold my beer, I'm gonna make it. And there's a game called Shatter Rush, all one word, on Steam. Open alpha playtest right now, which genuinely looks like spiritual successor to Titanfall 2. You got mechs, you got wall running, you got high-paced combat. Graphically speaking, of course, because it's indie, it's a little bit low-key, but from what I've seen, it looks really fucking good. On top of that, it's free to play right now for the alpha. You can literally just jump on Steam, get this game, jump in and start playing. And the reason for that is the developers want to make it hand in hand with the community so that they make the game you want to play. So if you're a fan of Titanfall 2 and sitting here going, seriously, where the fuck is Titanfall 3? Here you go. What do you think, Zach?
So again, I follow a lot of indie devs. I've talked to this indie developer.
Oh yeah?
On Reddit.
Nice.
Of all things. So I follow the indie dev of Reddit. And so I remember seeing this post, I think like a year ago, if not months ago at some point. And this was before Highguard was mentioned. This was before the all of that. And it was like, hey man, like there's a lot of amazing community. I know it's odd saying Reddit with amazing community feedback on Reddit. Some subs are worse than others, but the indie dev sub is honestly pretty good. And they were giving a lot of constructive feedback. Hey, this is how you should tailor your game. You have a lot of great ideas, but make it somehow legally distinct.
Yep. Which
is a must, because while indie development is great and it's great making games that we all want to play, Peter Molyneux, you have to make sure that your game is legally distinct, because the one thing that Peter Molyneux has more than all of us is money and lawyers. And so I remember seeing this, I'm like, this is a great idea. This is the Titanfall 3 that I wanted, in a more like, I don't care. Like, I've never played Titanfall 2 and said, let me just stop and just stare at the shrubbery and see how well they rendered it. Nobody's ever done that. If you've done that, talk to your doctor about autism. Right? We all played Titanfall because we wanted to run along walls, call in giant mechs, and shoot crazy guns at each other. And it was great.
Yep.
Seeing this game, I was like, man, this is amazing. And it's funny, once again, the midterms have melted my mind. I have completely forgotten about Shadow Rush until you mentioned it. And as soon as you were like, this is like Titanfall 3, I'm like, oh my God. I remember talking to the developer about this game. So I had to pull it up on Steam again. And it's like, yeah, they kept the very much, I don't want to say pixelated, but the
low res,
text,
low res,
yeah. Yeah, right? Like, hey, we've kept the texture simple. It is very legally distinct, but you can't copyright movement in the game. That's the important part.
Nintendo hasn't done that yet, we should say.
Yet. Yeah, right.
Who knows?
Warner Brothers,
they could file a patent and says, well, you can't use a bicycle in a video game anymore.
Yeah, right. We did that first. Warner Brothers coming out saying, hey, that's our Nemesis movement system that we own until 2055 or something. You're like, great. But no, I'm so happy you mentioned it, because again, from somebody who's punches all the games of all the categories that get thrown against the wall as one of the games that I remember seeing, and it's cool to see that it has a Steam page, it has early access. Like there, you go look at the ratings, everything on there looks like if you like Titanfall, you'll like this game.
Yeah, I'm hoping they come to PAX. I don't know if they will. I don't know where they're based, but I mean, looks cool. Love to talk to the devs. It looks really great. I want to play it. It will be again added to the queue. My queue is currently 676 games long, so you know, there's a lot.
After this, maybe you'll have one more.
This is 676 right now.
Yeah. Hey, real quick sidebar. 22 Cans with Peter Molyneux, right? Made a indie game, a mobile game called The Trail, which came out in 2016. Very unique playstyle. I've talked about it on the podcast before, so if you listen to that episode, you hear me talk about it. Love the gameplay. They haven't supported it since 2018. Just been gone. I cannot play them on my phone. Amazing game. The subreddit still has people comment on it, onesie twosies every now and then. I really want to play it, but hey, you know what? They just said, we're done. We're going to work on, Gods of Albion or whatever. And so this is one of those times where I was like, you know what? I'm going to learn Unity and make my own trail. And I don't have that kind of time, but I did start. So funny you mentioned, fuck it, I'll do it myself. And that was exactly the same thought I had.
Yep. Fuck it, I'll do it myself. Well, we aren't CoinDrop if we're not telling you some bad news too. Unsurprisingly to me personally, Ballistic Moon has closed. Now, you might go, who the fuck is Ballistic Moon? They're the ones who remade Until Dawn. That's the only thing they did, was they remade Until Dawn, which is a supermassive game. So this one studio, but correct me if I'm wrong, Zach, but I'm pretty sure that's all Ballistic Moon has made, is closed after making a game that they didn't initially make. Are we really surprised by that? It sucks, don't get me wrong. Sony put this studio together to do remakes, apparently, of supermassive games. Did Until Dawn and then went, well, it didn't get, the audience we wanted, or it didn't get as well received as we wanted, so we're going to close you. I don't know what the specifics are of the closure, but I imagine it was something like that.
I did like Until Dawn. Until Dawn was great. Ballistic Moon they were the developers that released it for PlayStation, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they did the remake, the 2024 remake re-release for PS5 and PC, because it wasn't initially on PC.
So it is a little disheartening to see that even PlayStation is not invincible from getting the Embracer solution or the Xbox Series solution of, hey, you made this, now we're going to fire all of you. And I guess we did see that with Concord.
Yeah. It seems like it was the wrong call, in my opinion. They could have just done a remaster and called it done, but they wanted to do a full upgrade remake. You know what would have been a better idea? I'll end on this before we move on to your, of course, mandated RuneScape topic. What would have been a better idea for Ballistic Moon to remake was Indigo Prophecy, because that was one of the first in that series, and if I'm not mistaken, that's also a supermassive game, and it is an underrated missed gem of a game that started the whole quick time narrative story genre, in my opinion. I think there was games before that were like that, but Indigo Prophecy was fucking phenomenal, and had Sony bought the IP for Indigo and had Ballistic Moon set out on it, I think they would have captured a much wider net, and they probably wouldn't have closed the studio. But that is unfortunately where we're at. Zach, it's not a CoinDrop episode without you mentioning RuneScape. What's going on, buddy?
All right. So, as is tradition, let me talk about RuneScape.
As it was written, so it shall be.
so it shall be. So, we've all heard me spiel about RuneScape. This one is going to be a little bit of a different discussion. I very much glow up Jagex and say, hey, how well they've done keeping a game that's 25 years old alive and well and thriving. And recently, with their turnover of the new year, they're saying, hey, this is our road to restoration. That's what they call it. We're going to make a lot of great content that's engaging. We're going to balance everything. We're going to remove things that players don't like, and we're going to revamp areas that players love. And boy, did the community love that. One of the biggest discussions, and you heard me talk about it, is there's like, hey, we're removing MTX from RuneScape 3. We're removing microtransactions. No more microtransactions, no more pay to win loot keys that like give you millions of experience and items that let you just sit at the bank. 99 a skill in a few hours sitting at the bank, where it takes other players days upon weeks to do the same. And it was a resounding success. We talked about this. I'm not going to go too far in depth, but the player base unanimously voted for it. Said, we want that. And they did it. Now, I myself, and I will say that I'm the very small part of my brain is aligning with the player base on this, where Jamflex screwed us. But I'm an adult. I have adult feelings. I have adult emotions, and I can reason like an adult. And when you say, "Hey, we're removing MTX from the game," how do you guys feel about that? And everyone went, "Great." And they said, "Hey, if we remove this though, we might have to charge you more for membership because we're removing a stream of revenue from the game. So we might have to charge you more." And the player base voted and said, "Yeah." Well, on March 10th, Jamflex, Jagex, sorry, we refer to them as Jamflex when they mess up, decided that, hey, we have to raise the price of membership. Now, anyone who's anyone understands that the value of money decreases over time. Inflation is a real thing. Prices of goods go up. We're now paying, on average, $70 for a AAA game. Initially, we're like, this is some bullshit. But you know what? As time goes on, I'm now used to it. When I'm like, on this AAA game, I'm going to have to pay $70. When we were children, we were used to paying $30, $40 for a game. Back then, $30, $40 was relatively equivalent to what a $60, $70 game is now.
Yeah, inflation
sucks. Inflation sucks. And RuneScape is a live service game. You need people to play it, to pay for membership, to make money, to develop the game.
Yep.
That's it.
It's a never-ending wheel.
It is. So on March 10th, they said, hey, we have to raise the prices of membership. Now, anyone who's played RuneScape as a kid knows that RuneScape membership was always the discount World of Warcraft membership, right? There was a big group of friends that says, hey, we play World of Warcraft and you suck if you don't play it. And there was a smaller group of friends that said like, well, our parents can afford RuneScape. And then there was a couple of us that like, we're playing EverQuest still.
Yeah.
I fell in, we fell into that, but I always fell into the RuneScape, right? Sure. I remember having to get my parents to pick up our telephone, to call a number, to charge I think it was like $5.
Yeah, it was
back
not. It was not a lot.
Yeah, it was like $5 a month, whereas at the time I think World of Warcraft launched at $15 a month, if I remember. It's been a while.
Yeah, they were competitive with EverQuest, and both of those launched at $12. And as their expansions went out, their prices came up. But it was about $12 to $15 at the time.
And this is where I will say that I understand as an adult that yes, they had to raise prices.
Yeah.
This is where Jamflex messed up. And this is where the heat comes in. This is where there's a lot of discourse going on. People are canceling their memberships left and right. So one of the things that Jagex has always done is when they raise the price, if you have an ongoing subscription, you're grandfathered into the price of your subscription. If you don't cancel that subscription,
you keep that price. Yeah.
Yeah. So your boy, who's been playing since 2001, has been paying roughly $8. So that's when I got my first credit card.
Yeah.
Been paying like $8 a month, which, that's not a terribly large amount of money. I can afford $8 a month to play RuneScape, but it's slowly climbed more and more. So the new price that they've come out with is now they had to raise it to $15 a month. It is now effectively a World of Warcraft subscription. But this is where they screwed the bed, is now they removed the grandfather rates. So if you were grandfathered in, you no longer get the grandfather. And they started offering this thing, this was a while ago, where you can buy a premier membership. You can say, I want to buy a year of membership at one time. Now this usually costs a large amount of money. So
but it's usually like a discounted percentage, right? Like any membership over a year.
Yeah, it was somewhere around $100, I remember. And the basis was, if you buy the premier membership and you decide that you don't want to pay for another year of membership, you can go back to your grandfathered rate on a month-to-month basis. Well, they got rid of that too. And we've talked about it before where, hey, there's a split between RuneScape 3 and old school RuneScape.
Mm-hmm.
So they're two separate games. If you buy membership, you get membership to both. So I can take my same character on old school RuneScape, I could go play RuneScape 3. Progression's different between the two, so my stats don't carry over and everything, but I can use the same character. Now, old school doesn't have MTX.
Mm-hmm.
So they're a different development group still under Jagex. They're still RuneScape. It's still the same company, but they're just different development. Removing MTX from RuneScape 3 never affected old school. The content they come out with is not dependent. Same with RuneScape 3 is not dependent on old school.
Yeah.
If MTX is removed from RuneScape 3, why should old school players be catching the strays from the raise of membership price?
That's a good fucking point. That's a good point.
Yep. So now old school RuneScape players who you could have never have touched RuneScape 3, you have lost your grandfather rate, you've lost your discount from your membership if you decide to go back, only because RuneScape 3 players have elected that we want to get rid of MTX and we're okay with paying more. So that's the discourse.
Yeah.
And I think right now we're still in the very loud minority of players who don't like this. I'm not going to. I still pay for RuneScape membership.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep playing RuneScape. It's I think, everyone wants to talk about, like, you go to Reddit right now and you can go to OSRS or 2007scape, any of the subreddits of RuneScape, and you will see hundreds of posts of people playing like, I'm speaking with my wallet, and they're canceling. Mm-hmm. That's great.
Yeah.
Keep doing that. That's how you vote. You say, I'm going to do this. But I like to be the devil's advocate for things. Jagex is not an indie studio. They have outlived hundreds of studios.
They outlived EverQuest.
They outlived EverQuest. They have outlived AAA studios, and they are a privately owned studio in the UK. And making a live service game, is very difficult. And making an MMO game, let alone two of them at the same time, is even more difficult.
Yeah.
Jagex knows what they are doing. So it's not like they have some intern sitting behind the wheel saying, what if we tweaked the price knob and just jack that up and see what happens?
Yeah.
Right? These were all business decisions made. I will not disagree with you, though. Speak with your wallet.
Yeah.
If you play RuneScape and you're listening and you don't agree, speak with your wallet. I will not fault you for it. You're entirely right. But don't shit on Jagex saying, hey, what they're doing is right. Cancel your membership, and then 2 months later be like, you know what, I do like RuneScape, and then rebuy your membership.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
I mean, it becomes a thing of like, look, either you enjoy the game and you eat the fact that your price is now hiked, which realistically, when I looked at buying a membership, it was $12.99 before the price hike. So we're talking about a difference of $3 for those who weren't grandfathered, right? If you were grandfathered, totally understand that's a big jump from what you were paying. But also, if you had that price, you're probably an adult and you can probably afford an extra $4 a month. Just my personal thought. I don't know everybody's finances. I get it. Again, vote with your wallet. That's your right. But like Zach said, man, don't fucking shit talk the game just because of a bad decision they made or you perceive a bad decision and then turn around and be like, well, I miss playing the game, so I guess I'll give them my money. You either like the game or you don't, right? And the decision is the decision. Now, I will agree, it's fucked up. OSRS is affected by something that doesn't affect them. That sucks, but fucking life. I don't know.
Yeah, it's life. It's life. And, I'll leave one last thought. If they were promising content, saying, hey, we're going to make all this content, and we're going to spend all this development time and all this effort making this content, and they didn't make that content and then raise the price, by all means, I would cancel.
Yeah.
You're not following through. But by the sheer fact alone that Jagex came out with a roadmap where they're saying, we're going to completely overhaul RuneScape 3. Watch us overhaul RuneScape 3.
Hell yeah.
And they are following it through on the dot, overhauling everything, coming out with new content. Don't get me wrong, vote with your wallet. But again, developers have to eat. Developers are people too.
Yep.
Inflation also affects them.
Yep.
The cost of living hasn't gone down for them at all. And you have to pay developers. And so to me, I'm like, yeah, that sucks. But you know what? They are still releasing content. They still have plans to release content. They're coming out with stuff on a weekly basis. And they're communicating with the player base. So while, that price hike does suck, maybe right now it is the loud minority. And like, hey, remember, people were paying for AOL 10 years after AOL went defunct. Yeah. There's probably thousands of players still playing for RuneScape that haven't logged in for 10 years, and they're like, I don't know what this charge on my credit card is, but you know what? It's only $15 a month. Who cares?
Yep. It's just building credit for that person if they're paying off their card, right? Anyway, I think that is gonna wrap it up for us tonight. Zach, any final thoughts before we head over to Patreon?
Yeah, if you're gonna do your midterms, don't accept training at the same week. And also, as always, check your bread.
Check your bread. Thank you everyone for listening or watching, and we will see you next time. We're gonna head over to Patreon, so if you want more content, if you like the show, tell a friend, or join us over there, patreon.com/CoinDrop Pod, for all the exclusive content you can get. We will see you next time.